Hey y'all, it's Ashley, your Southern Lesbian, and this is part of a special series that I'm starting called the Not Scary Podcast About. Now, if you are a regular subscriber, yes, I will still be doing your Southern Lesbian episodes with all the usual stuff, so still look for that on this same channel, and this will just live under a different playlist. If you're new here, then welcome, and you do not have to be a lesbian to listen to this content. The Not Scary Podcast About is for everybody. So yeah, unfortunately, about 7 months ago, I did find a breast lump, and I'm going to walk y'all through the process and the things that I've learned. And I'll tell you why I wanted to start this and why I felt the need to talk about it, because for 7 months, I have not wanted to talk about it, as y'all can tell. I talk about everything. In the beginning, in the first few days of discovering this lump and getting diagnosed, I was terrified, as I'm sure you are too, if you're here listening to this. And I felt completely powerless. I felt like conferring with, and I knew that I needed more information and more knowledge, but I was so scared because cancer is such a scary word, and we've all had friends who've had rough bouts with cancer. So I was lucky enough to have a friend who offered to do some research for me and only feed me information and podcasts that weren't scary, because I wouldn't read anything. I wouldn't listen to podcasts. Like, that is not me. I'm a podcaster and I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I was just terrified to listen to any of them. So I created this along the same lines, because if you were like me and you are terrified to go through the information and you're not sure what's coming down the pipe and you want someone to just explain some things to you, maybe this will help. Maybe I can be that for you the way he was for me. This podcast is for everyone, by the way. Like I said, you don't have to be a lesbian to be here. You don't even have to be a woman to be here. You could be a man. Men do get breast cancer too. So if you have just been diagnosed, I want you to know that I feel you, and I'm sorry you're going through this. It is not an easy thing to get through, but I will tell you that you can do it. And I will also tell you that most of the fears that I felt were all just in my head. And I found that actually going through the process of the consultations and the biopsies and the MRIs and the surgery and, the lumpectomy in my case, and the radiotherapy after and all the aftercare. We'll talk about all that in pieces, but the scariest part of it really was my thoughts and what I anticipated it was going to look like. The actual process, like, people are lovely. People that work in this field, in my experience, have been lovely. They are all so trained to work with people like us who could fall apart at any moment. So anyway, we'll talk about all that, but I just want you to know that you will get through it. You will get through it. And then I'm here to be a resource. That's all. Again, I'm no doctor, y'all. I'm going to say it again. I'm not a doctor. This is just my experience. And I found that going through this process, that there was a lot that I didn't know. Of course, you become a specialist real quick, right, when you're thrown into something like this. But there are things that I wasn't told as well that I just thought were important to share. And so here we are, and welcome. I'm glad you're here. When I found the lump, I had just moved into this flat in the UK. I do not have a visa. I'm not a citizen here. I was just here because I could plant here for a little while. I'm a writer and I wanted to do some research here. I wanted to do the podcast here. It just is a time in my life where I could do this. So I find it very interesting that the universe was like, okay, let's give her a breast lump now. Anyway, I digress. I found it literally probably 2 or 3 days after moving into this place. Now, this was a blessing and really strange to me. It was scary as hell, because here I was by myself in a foreign country, family all back in the States. I had let go of my insurance in the States and I didn't have insurance here. So I was like, oh hell, right? Sorry, y'all. I'm going to cuss a little bit on this podcast, so just bear with me. It's worth cussing over a little bit. And to top it all off, I had just started dating a really beautiful girl. I didn't feel like it was fair to pull her in fully to this either, because good Lord, not her thing to carry with us only having dated for a couple months. So I went to every appointment alone, even surgery. She did pick me up from surgery, which is great. And she offered to be there through all the appointments. But I just felt like it was really important that I go into these appointments and I fully grasp what was happening and fully make my own decisions. That was scary, but it was also really empowering. Like, after I got through the first couple, I was like, okay, think I can do this. I think I can do this. It's one of those feel the fear and do it anyway kind of moments. I will tell you that coming out the other side of it, I did go from being extremely terrified to feeling really empowered. It's another reason why I want to give y'all this information, because if also you're like me and you're having to go through these appointments alone, or you just feel like I did, like you just want to do it alone, this will give you a little bit of information, and you can either watch these episodes before or after. It's your choice, but I'm going to break them up that way and sort of walk us through each stage of the process. My process. Yours will be a little bit different because we're all different. There's so much to get into, so here we go. Now, I had no history of breast cancer in my family except for an aunt who was in her 70s, and she did die of breast cancer. So of course, that's the first thing that I'm thinking when I feel the lump. It's like, oh God, what? What I learned from my specialists, multiple, said that for it to be considered genetic family history, it has to be like, I think before the age of 50. So for her to be in her, or it could be in like early 50, I don't know, don't quote me on, I'm not a doctor. Anyway, the point is she was in her 70s when she, got hers, and they said that that's too late in life for it to have been genetic, that would have been environmental. So, that was a little bit of a relief, even though I just felt terrible for her, because when I hear that it's environmental, to me it feels like maybe it's preventable. Now, like I said, y'all, I had just moved into this flat when I discovered this. So what I didn't realize is that when you rent a place in the UK, you're immediately within days sent a bill for what's called council tax here. And part of that is your payment into the NHS. Now, I don't get full coverage by the NHS because, like I said, I'm not a citizen here. I don't have a visa. But what I did get through paying that council tax was very basic NHS care. So that includes your GP, or that would be the same as like a primary care physician in the States. So you have your point person who helps you make this plan of attack, who's like, okay, let me refer you into a good hospital right away sort of thing, or let me refer you in to see this specialist. Let me get your blood work done for you. She could do all of that stuff, which was super helpful. And it just felt like I had one person in my corner that I could talk to about it, which was hugely helpful. So here in the UK, and I don't know if they have these in the States, y'all, but it is worth looking into. Here in the UK, they have these amazing, like all-in-one breast centers, and you can do all of your treatment in these centers, but they move so fast. I mean, they're expensive, and NHS doesn't cover that. So I started my journey there, but it was too expensive for me to stay there. But I did start there, and I did do my research, and I got into the hands of a really, really wonderful specialist who is also, she's a surgeon, and she also has professor as her title. Really scientific, data-driven woman who I just had a lot of respect for. So where I should start is to tell y'all that when I was diagnosed, I was 53, almost 54. And at that point, I was 2 years into menopause. So the first question that she asked me was, are you on any HRT, hormone replacement therapy? Well, yes, I was. And I said, I'm on progesterone. And she goes, and estrogen? No, just progesterone. And she's like, what? So here's what I learned, y'all. The progesterone that I was on always has to be balanced out with estrogen. If you still have a uterus, you can't be taking estrogen without progesterone, and you should never be on progesterone without it balancing out the estrogen. I think, again, I'm no doctor. This is what I was told. This is what I learned. Because those little hormones will run rampant in your body. And so instantly she said to me, okay, I think we know this could very well be the driver that caused your lump. Now, that's the word that they use for it. Whatever the cause is, they call it driver. And there's several things that could be a driver. So in my case, we had a feeling it was probably that progesterone. We hoped, right? She said, get off of it right away. So I did. She sent me in for a mammogram right away. We could see the mass. Sent me in for biopsy right away. Within a 2-hour period, I went from consulting with her to getting into a mammogram so we could see exactly where and what was going on. Now, I also have really dense breasts, y'all. So she was like, okay, I can see this one, but you've got really dense breasts. And I feel like the smart thing to do would be to also order an MRI. Okay, so, and she wanted to biopsy that one spot right away, which I did right away within the 2-hour span. So into biopsy I go first. Now in that moment, y'all, when I just heard the word biopsy, I lost it a little bit. So I was like, I I mean, I knew I had to get it done. I didn't know what a biopsy was. I've never had a surgery. I've never broken a bone. I feel very lucky to have made it this far in life. I mean, we'll knock on some wood, to where I didn't have to have any of these things. So all of these terms were foreign to me, even though I grew up in a household of people who work in the medical field. I've never had the stomach for it, y'all. So these terms really scared me, and I broke down a little bit. And she was really great and said, come on, I'm going to get you through this. We're just getting information. And I was like, right, but information sounds terrifying right now. So I went into the biopsy, and I had no idea what that was. I was expecting a big old long needle. I didn't know. It's not that, y'all. It's actually not that. It was so much easier than I thought it would be, and that's why I wanted to talk to y'all about it. And by the way, this breast center was all women. You need to know that you can request women the whole way through if that's your comfort level. I mean, I'm a big lesbian, so of course women are my comfort level. By the way, if you're a man, don't worry. There are really a lot of qualified men in the field too, because as I was doing my research, I came across a lot of them. And there were a lot at some of the other facilities that I went to, but that's just my comfort level. So I did request women everywhere. Anyway, the radiologist, when I got into the room for the biopsy, she was fantastic and so gentle. And they basically do an ultrasound over you, which is just where they lay you down. They put the gel across you, and they use it looks like a mouse, like that you use with your computer, and they just sort of rub it across the area so it's sound waves. It's like it's just sound waves popping in there, but it creates a little picture, just like they would do if you're pregnant looking at a baby, right? So ultrasound. And so they have to sort of get the positioning right to find where they have to do the biopsy. Now, here was the thing that I didn't know, y'all, is they take 3 to 5 samples each time they do a biopsy of one of these little tumors. So wasn't expecting that. So she did one, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm done. And then she had to do more. And so I'm just sharing with y'all, they don't hurt. It's so fast. They numb the area. They do use a needle to just numb the area real quick. It's quick, y'all. It's so just one little pinch, and that's it. That's the most that you're going to feel. The scariest part of getting the biopsies, to me, it's just it looks like a retractable pen. And maybe diabetics use these. I don't know. I know that people who have to self-inject, maybe it's like a Lancet type pen, but it's literally like a click gun. This thing is so fast. It's so fast. And that click, that sound is what sort of, gets your attention more than anything else. But they warn you. They're like, okay, you're going to hear a loud click. And you feel just a little bit of pressure in the spot in the moment, but it's so fast. And that thing grabs that sample, off it goes to be tested. So they do take, in my case, I think they did take, I don't know, maybe 4 that day. And you want them to. You want them to have as much information around that tumor as possible, because you need to know what you're dealing with, right? The other thing that I learned is that all cancers are not the same. Depending on how the tests come back on that tumor, that's how they're going to determine how to treat you. The results of that, I think it took a day or so for the results of that to come back. I went back into the professor's office, and she revealed to me, because at this point I'm hoping it's benign. It's just a crazy little growth of, the progesterone. Well, no, y'all, it was malignant. So when I heard that, it was really scary. It just sinks. I just felt hot all over and scared. She told me it was malignant. She told me it was estrogen receptor positive and progesterone receptor positive, ER positive and PR positive, they call it. So what that means is the receptors on the end of the tumor only are triggered, they're activated into abnormal cell growth by estrogen or progesterone. Well, okay, that makes sense, right? Because I was taking progesterone and it wasn't balanced out in my body with the estrogen. So I was like, okay, great. Got it. What scared me though is I'm producing estrogen and progesterone. I don't know if I'm still producing progesterone actually. I knew I was still producing estrogen though, because I'm still of the age. So wasn't really sure what that meant. Also, they're going to tell you whether or not you're HER protein positive. They're going to tell you whether you're triple negative. So you don't want to be triple negative. That sounds like a good thing. But what that means is you're not estrogen receptor positive, you're not progesterone receptor positive, and you're not HER protein 2 positive. The HER2 protein, by the way, it just means that, or again, my interpretation of it, it means you have faster growing cells. If you are any of those things, they have ways of blocking these proteins of getting to your tumor so that they can shut it down faster. It's really different in the way they treat each one, and that's what I had to learn. They do also a test on you called a D-dish sample. So the D-dish test is a test for your lymph nodes. So that's a separate test, and that takes a little bit longer to get your results back from. And good Lord, I had already gotten these results back, and then I was just like, Jesus, please. My lymph nodes did come back clear, thank God. My D-dish was negative. So that's what that will mean. My tumor measured at 24 millimeters, which is considered a grade 2 mass. Again, I heard grade 2, and in my brain, I thought they said stage 2, so I got upset again. That's not what that means. It just is the size of the tumor. This was considered a stage 1 because we caught it so early and it had not spread into the lymph nodes. Thank God. I was also really concerned with how do we know that the estrogen's not causing these problems, because I'm, in menopause, but my levels were still going up and down. And the bad thing about at this stage of your life, your hormone levels are all over the place. So it is pretty impossible to get a consistent reading of what those hormone levels are. But we really strongly felt like it was the progesterone, thank God. Now, I should also tell you that the reason I can pretty solidly say that as well is that I was thinking, how can this happen to me? I am vegan, gluten-free, refined sugar-free for the most part. I go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week, and I walk every day almost 10,000 steps a day. I'm really health conscious of what I put in my body and on my body. I don't use any shampoos with parabens or, everything that I buy, I try to get vegan and clean with no harsh anything in them. My makeup, everything, my lotions, I use mostly natural oils because I had a podcast a couple of years ago, y'all may know, called Life in the New Normal with a life coach who was intuitive. And we talked about this a lot, about how changing out these products can make a big difference. I just kept sitting here thinking, gosh, I guess, if it is the progesterone, okay, that makes sense. But can you imagine if I wasn't taking care of my body? Oh, I was very grateful that I was taking care of my body. I will tell y'all that when I actually went into surgery, 4 months later, I got this tumor removed. It had shrunk to 16 millimeters. So from 24 to 16, that tells me how well I was supporting my body because my body was starting to absorb that tumor. Isn't that crazy, y'all? If you support your body, how it can actually heal itself. And part of me was thinking, well, do I even need to do this surgery then? Because if my tumor shrunk that much, will it just continue to take it away? But I didn't want to run the risk, y'all. I did not want to run the risk of something like sloughing off and getting into my lymph nodes. I just wanted it out. So I would say if you've just found a lump, and if maybe you've just been into these appointments, just know, like I said, these professionals, they know you might fall apart on them, and that's okay. This woman was great with me. I went to, the next surgeon, and other professionals that I met with were not as warm. Some of these people are very scientific and very data trained and thinking, and that's why you have the nurses. The nurses tend to be much more empathetic. Sometimes the doctors and the specialists aren't, and that's okay. You need them to be really good at what they do. So let them give you the information in the way they have to give you the information, and then it's okay to fall apart a little bit, but maybe you can hug a nurse afterwards. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry if you're going through this. I really am. I wanted to leave y'all with this too. So one of the podcasts that my dear friend sent me at the time I was diagnosed that was chock full of scientific information and not scary was Dr. Peter Attia's podcast about this. And I'm going to link that specific episode in the show notes so y'all can listen to that if you want to. It was a little overwhelming for me to absorb at first, but it'll make sense, and you might want to go back and listen to it a couple times the more information you get, because this is 2 specialists on there talking about the different types of breast cancer, and they go into quite a bit of detail, which is, it's helpful. It's helpful, y'all. I'm going to tell you also, I use ChatGPT a lot. I went down the rabbit holes of just doing research there. It was super helpful for me. Medical journals that I dug into and stuff, I don't know. Might be good for you too. If you're lucky enough to have an advocate, that's great. But I'm telling you, it's so good if you can also be your own advocate. I think the more that you understand this process and you can, be strong for yourself, it'll help you, because mental health through this journey is so important, and being strong through this journey is so important, and where you keep your thoughts. I mean, this is the type of thing that obviously if you allow yourself to, you can spiral downward real fast. So make yourself happy playlists that you can listen to when you're going to these appointments. I did. Or find happy podcasts you can listen to, comedy or something when you're going. Just find ways to remove the little, stressful things in your life right now, because you can't afford it. You're going to need all of your emotional energy to get you through this and to stay positive. So give yourself that. Take yourself for walks. Do the things that make you happy. Schedule things that make you happy. I scheduled horseback riding for myself immediately after I got done with this because I love it. And I scheduled pickleball and I scheduled golf and just wanted all these things lined up. So I knew I had that to look forward to on the other side of that. But you got to, y'all. You got to give yourself things to look forward to right now. So please do that for yourselves. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll be back for the next episode. Okay? Bye, y'all.